So you want to jump in?
Sure. Before we get going, I do want to mention. I know I've mentioned this before, but I don't want to wait until the end of the show. I want to do it at the beginning of the show today,
Okay.
and I do want to encourage everyone to go check out our forthcoming um, ambassadors for biblical justice program that we are building right now at the Center for Biblical Unity. You can get there by just going to centerforbiblicalunity.com/ambassador. And this is a 9-month virtual mentoring program that we're developing. It's going to be launching this fall in August, and we're looking for 25 people. Applications are starting to come in now, but we are looking for 25 people in our inaugural cohort. It's going to be pretty amazing. Just walking people through a biblical view and framework on justice and encouraging you to think and consider and pray about how to apply it in your context, in your specific sphere of influence. So I just want to encourage everyone to go check out the program. And if you're not interested, please help us out by sharing it out, letting people know about the program, because we just want to cast as wide a net as possible to get as many applicants as possible.
I agree. You know, as I think about it, part of, or not even, I don't want to say part of it, but I feel like the setup and the way that it's laid out kind of is, it's kind of like the road that I walked coming out or coming away from a lot of the critical social theories and gaining a more biblical view and understanding of justice, like some of the books that were read, just the flow. Like you couldn't tackle everything in our conversations at one time. So, hey, this, quarter or this 6 months we're going to talk about work, and the modules aren't broken out that long, as far as time length, but it does look at how do we have a biblical view of justice in regards to work, in regards to marriage and family and things like that. And so as I was reflecting on it today, I was like, oh, this is kind of the road that I walked in tackling the big concepts that culture really seeks to change your mind on, and then bring you away from a biblical solid worldview and into that more progressive social justice mindset. And so how do we guard against that? How do we bring people back from that? How do we have hard and good conversations regarding biblical truth? And so all of that is going to be in our ambassador program. So check it out.
Yep. So go to centerforbiblicalunity.com. You can see the address right here at the bottom of your screen, but for the podcast, centerforbiblicalunity.com/ambassador. And please do help us spread the word about the program. There's going to be a promo video dropping soon. So when you see that on our social media, please help us out by sharing it out to others.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Let's jump in.
I had my mic off, but hopefully they heard me. All right.
Or maybe you were just like, wah, wah, wah,
wah, wah, wah. Wah, 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 wah. Okay. All right. So, last week we did part of the show was on James Talarico, the young 32-year-old running for Texas senator representing the great state of Texas.
The Christian cosplay artist.
Well, he's a Christian progressive. He would call himself Christian progressive.
He would call himself a Christian because, she's so nice. I love it. Like, it's really helpful. It reminds me to come on back in. But yeah, I would call him a Christian cosplay artist because if, God is non-gendered or non-binary.
He has a number of progressive views. Pro-abortion, pro-transing children. There was a little soundbite of him this week. Some podcaster asked him, like, what's something that you really love? And he said,
the trans children.
I really love trans children because they're so brave. So, he's just a good old-fashioned progressive. But he's very open about his Christian faith, which is not common among Democrats. I don't feel like for them, they don't often make arguments for their beliefs based on the Bible, whereas James Talarico does. He wants to try to give to do case making for his progressive views from the Bible.
I would say I have been and know plenty of a progressive person. And that's where I think there has to be some kind of line. Like, okay, they have some progressive views, but I think there's a line.
What kind of line? Line for what? What are you saying?
A line between, like, okay, I'm a progressive, like I may have some skewed views and I can be discipled into, something better and more godly and hopeful, versus I believe that children can be transed or mutilated. I think that we should kill children in the womb now, and I completely was pro-abortion at one time, so I get
remember
that.
Those
I
were
get
fun
that.
times.
But I think there has to be a line. Like, if we just, well, everybody's just a progressive Christian. I don't know. And that, yeah.
I guess to me, what strikes me about him, and Elaine says it pretty well here, he's definitely using the Bible in a loud kind of way, which is, to me, very different than progressive Democrats typically is, he's trying to, while you might find a progressive Democrat that if you push them, like, well, I'm a Catholic, or something, but they're not trying to make the case using Bible verses a lot.
Yeah. But I think you hit the nail on the head earlier. You said, what'd you say, his Christianity?
Yeah.
It is. It's literally like his version of Christianity because it's not in scripture. So, yeah.
Well, the big thing this week on Christian Twitter was David French's editorial opinion in the New York Times. And let me see if I can pull this up here. It's called James Talarico is a Christian X-ray. And so if you want to get it, New York Times is kind of annoying because it's paywalled. But I was able to get this article. But David French is, I think he would still call himself an evangelical.
He calls himself a conservative in this article.
Oh, yeah. So,
but again, words mean something. So I want to know, how are we using that word?
But he would see himself as a conservative. And, he acknowledges that Talarico is progressive. He says he's one of the most faith-forward politicians right now in the U.S., which I think is an interesting way to describe Talarico. He doesn't. He is a seminary graduate from a small PCUSA seminary, and what I think is interesting about him, he's a great example of what I do as a public theologian. He's doing theology in public. He's doing theology outside of academia, but with an eye toward public policy. And he wants to shape public policy on his view of the Bible. He kind of sees the core of the message as Jesus liberates. And he doesn't call himself a Christian nationalist. He would say Christian nationalism controls, Jesus saves, Christian nationalism kills. Jesus started a universal movement based on love. So he's trying to differentiate what he's doing from Christian nationalism. I'm not sure it works. I'm not convinced it works.
Yeah. No, it's just, it's the opposite side of Christian nationalism, like progressive Christian nationalism. It is Christian nationalism with scripture taken out of context. It doesn't work.
Because to me, Christian nationalism, the way I'm kind of defining it in a very general way, is that it is the idea of principles from scripture applied to public issues and in some cases public policies.
Yes.
And as a nation, to me, this is Christian nationalism.
Is to influence the nation.
Yeah.
Through Christian principles.
Exactly.
He is influencing, or he has a desire, a public platform to influence our nation through public policy, but through Christian means.
Yeah. What I thought David French's, the key to the article is this. He says, let's see. When I hear Talarico speak about faith, I alternate between agreement and disagreement. He's spot on about the dangers of Christian nationalism. And yet, we should say David French is a real like anti-Trump, anti-Christian nationalist kind of guy. And yet I can't help but respond to his arguments about the relative priority of abortion by asking, why can't we do it all? Provide high quality healthcare, welcome immigrants, and protect the unborn. There's a famous quote from Talarico saying that our border should be like a welcome mat for the world. And so he's an open borders guy.
But if we look at this in this sentence, I'm glad you highlighted it because that's what struck out to me in this too. If French is saying, why can't we do it all? Provide high quality healthcare, welcome the immigrants. To me, that low key sounds like socialism. Like he's advocating for socialist policies, but yet he says he's a conservative. And this is why I say words mean something. Like
he says he's a conservative. Yes, French
says he's a conservative. And so I'm like, how are you defining conservative? Because as a conservative, we would not say we should just provide high quality healthcare like for everybody across the board. That is not something that like we don't march around with my picket sign for socialism, nor do we just welcome the immigrant with our open borders. Now, we can talk about policies. We can talk about how do we do this best or better than what has been, but I'm not just standing here advocating for socialist policy while protecting the unborn. Don't forget the unborn. We can't be too socialist. Just killing people.
Well, we'll talk more about that in a minute. The other quote that really stuck out to me was this one. This is, to me, is the key sentence. And David French himself used this in his tweet when he was trying to share out his article. Put simply, if the primary American divide is between right and left, then Talarico isn't that interesting. There's a long history of progressive religious activism in the United States, just as there is a long history of conservative religious activism. I'm glad he acknowledges that. While evangelicals white evangelicals might be overwhelmingly Republican, but American Christians are remarkably diverse politically. Now, here we would have to ask Mr. French, how are you defining Christians? Are you including progressive Christians under that umbrella? I have some questions about that. And we've been arguing with one another for a long time.
This is my favorite part right here.
This is the key sentence of the whole thing. Yet, if the primary American divide, remember before I says if it's
right or left,
it's not that interesting. But if there's a different divide is between decent and indecent, then the equation changes. Talarico shines.
Which means that given who Talarico is in his totality, everything that he has talked about, he shines as being the decent.
I would say that's what French is saying. He thinks Trump is indecent. He thinks Talarico is decent. So even though he disagrees with his policies, he likes him as a decent person.
He shines as, to me, I would just take the transing of children and say that's indecent. Like that, to me, that's just indecent. If you think that it's okay to mutilate the genitals of children and that the trans children are your favorite, that makes you indecent. I don't care if all your other policies are great. You're indecent. But David French now calls him the shining light. He says Talarico shines as being the decent.
Yeah.
But people, your big Eva, your big evangelical infrastructure, David French has been propped up and promoted by your big Eva people across the board. But this is who he says shines. I got questions.
Do you remember that David French is the one that Biola called in 2021 to be the conservative voice?
See, and I wasn't going to say that. I wasn't going to public. I just said big Eva, the institutions. But yes, universities. Was it the Gospel Coalition he used to write for? Who did he used to write for?
He has, but Christianity Today has propped him up. I mean, there's some pretty big institutions.
And they like Christianity yesterday. It ain't today.
I prefer progressive Christianity Today. But one more sentence here. The very next one says, Or to put it another way, Talarico is one of the few openly Christian politicians. Now, again, how are we defining Christian again?
No. Just keep going, because
In
it
the
gets
United
better.
States, who acts like a Christian.
According to David French's standard of whatever a Christian
And by
is.
acting like a Christian, he reveals a profound contrast with so many members of the MAGA Christian movement that's dominated political life for 10 years.
I know people talk about Trump derangement syndrome, and they might say that it's synonymous with MAGA Christian movement syndrome. But whatever it is, whatever the glitch is in people's brains, it turns them from thinking clearly, biblically, logically, into saying, well, at least they're not MAGA. And as long as they're not MAGA, they shine. Yeah. No. Y'all be careful who you read and keep an eye out for what institutions or organizations prop up David French.
So if the political divide isn't, though, between right and left, I don't even think it's between decent and indecent. I think from a biblical perspective, it should be between moral and immoral.
Say it.
It's just peculiar to me that the way that French wants to divide this, but it makes sense in how much he doesn't like Trump, he sees him as an indecent person. And it's a little bit of a progressive idea to say what matters more than what you believe is how you behave. And I would say both matter. Both how you behave and what you believe are important. Character should follow the beliefs, but I don't know if character is a replacement for the beliefs. Like, just because Talarico is a nice guy, and he's gentle when he's talking about murdering children or mutilating children's body parts, and he's gentle and nice when he does it, and he's decent in how he does it. To me, that's just still wicked and immoral.
See, and I think it's about a bunch of hogwash. Like, I think that my beliefs do shape my character. And so if these are my beliefs, and people can see, I'm telling you what my beliefs are, I do think that there's got to be something in the character, whether he shines and when he stands up on some stage and he looks like this one thing, I would say that there's got to be something in the character.
And I really want to know, like, how are we defining Christian at that point? I don't know. It's weird to me. So that's one of the things, that's the big story happening on Christian Twitter this week. And then I wake up to the people who I would say in a very similar stream as David French is the people at the Holy Post.
Oh, isn't that the guy from the
VeggieTales?
Yes, my hairbrush. Yeah. I couldn't think of that name.
I never watched VeggieTales. I was in graduate school when those were coming out. So
Aware. Oh, we're not there.
This is the moment to point out that we are somewhat of different generations.
Yeah.
But they interviewed Talarico on the Holy Post podcast, and the Holy Post podcast, I would say, is they're also trying to position themselves as an evangelical platform. They would consider themselves still as conservatives. But they would see themselves as like center right, I think would be a fair way of saying it. But they featured Talarico this week on their podcast. Remember that we went and heard Sky Jelani at that one event that shall remain nameless? Remember that? So he's hosting.
I was trying not to, but here we go.
Okay. So he was hosting this episode of the Holy Post. So let's listen to this clip. So you're going to hear first Talarico talking, and he's really talking about how he has a vision to make a big tent in the Democratic Party, in particular, to try to give a space for people like us, pro-life.
Honey, we are not the same.
Pro-life Democrats.
We are not the same.
Okay, well, here we go.
If someone like Pope Francis, who may be anti-abortion, but is also anti-war, anti-poverty, anti-climate change, if someone like that can't find room in our coalition, then we have a huge problem. And we're never going to build a big enough coalition to really win the power that it's going to take to transform this country and improve people's lives. We don't win power by force. We don't win power by domination. We win power through persuasion and building a big coalition of people who may not always agree on every issue, right? I was asked on another show if there was room for pro-life Democrats. I have some problems with that framing, but people who oppose abortion rights, I do think there is a ton of room in our party for that, because all of us can agree on the measures to reduce the number of abortions, to reduce the number of unplanned pregnancies. There's plenty of tools in our toolbox to do that, if that's actually the problem we're trying to solve, of course. And I think it's been shown that usually a lot of the positions and policies that are supported by Democrats, scientifically valid sex education, readily accessible forms of family planning and contraception, that those things all reduce the number of abortions, making sure people have health insurance. All of these things work, and that should be a huge area of common ground, even if folks have objections to abortions themselves. The moment requires that all of us who believe in the American experiment band together so that we can save and fix this democracy and make it work for everyone.
Mute. This seems like a vision to how do we get evangelicals, white evangelicals in particular, to change from being so many Republicans to being Democrats. If you're a one-issue voter, you're voting Republican because they're pro-life, just come over to the Democrat Party. We'll make a bigger tent. It'll be up for you too. Are you buying this?
No.
You don't want to be in that tent?
I'm glad he's talking to the white people. He ain't talking to me. Go ahead. Go on and tell the white people what's wrong. I don't know. Don't tell me nothing. Yeah, it's, my gosh. But I mean, you got to think about it. Like, oh, who was it who said, someone said, and it was last year, like, it's down to the white, like, true Christians to get out and vote, because all, like, the other people have, like, largely gone to the Democrat side. And they were talking about blacks. Do you remember that?
No.
You don't remember that? It made the rounds, because I remember talking with Thaddeus about it. But I kind of am like, I think what Talarico was saying is legitimate. Like, he has to go after the white evangelical, the person who is against abortion, the person who might appreciate Trump's policies, but not like Trump. Like, hey, we actually have some things that you will appreciate over here, because right now, like 80% of black people are voting Kamala.
Well, I think with Talarico, his appeal is he's like, what would it be like if Opie Taylor was running for a major national office? Like that's what he strikes me as, like, just all American look, all American boy, but he's got these very progressive ideas, but a very nice personality.
I don't know.
And you don't know who Opie Taylor is? Okay.
Is that the kid from the what was that show where the guy was the sheriff?
Yeah, Andy Griffith's show.
Okay, yeah.
That's what he reminds me of, is Opie Taylor. He's just a super nice guy, but he's got super toxic ideas.
Was the kid?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
But did you catch what he said there? I'm going to just replay just the beginning seconds of it, as I want to talk about one of the things that he says. I just want to, like, really call people's attention to just a part of what he says. I'm gonna get this the right size here. All right, let's play it again.
If someone like Pope Francis, who may be anti-abortion, but is also anti-war, anti-poverty, anti-climate change, if someone like that can't find room in our coalition, then we have a huge problem. And we're never going to build a big enough coalition to really win the power that it's going to take to transform this country and improve people's lives.
Okay, if that's not Christian nationalism, I don't know what to do with you. Let's just look at these words. Thankfully, they're captioned. The goal is to build a big enough coalition to really win the power, the very thing they're always screaming at conservatives about, being hungry for power. They're like, you know, you don't understand power differentials and power dynamics and white MAGA Christians. And we don't even characterize ourselves as, you know, being Trump simps or anything, but just because we want conservative policies, you know, but yes, power is part of it. They want the same thing. It's to win the power that it's going to take. Here's to transform this country and improve people's lives. Well, what is your standard of improvement?
Ariel hit it. She's
What
sorry.
are we doing? Like, who is going to define what the nature of improvement is? Go ahead.
No, I was just like, it sounds very Marxist. It sounds very critical theory-ish. You know, like when I think about the definition of critical race theory, it talks about power. It talks about the transformation. It talks about like
but they want
transforming
societal
but it's
transformation.
It's the transformation of the relationship between race, racism, and power. Power is always at the forefront in that Marxian type of ideology, that neo-Marxist ideology. And so, yeah, like.
But this is the thing, is they're always screaming at conservatives because we want to win elections. We want our ideas to be implemented. We are making the case, some of us biblically, for certain policies and principles to be built on the Bible. Rules for thee, but not for me. It does feel like such a hypocritical double standard. And I'm going to continue to call this progressive Christian nationalism, whether they like it or not, because that's exactly what it is. They have a vision for social transformation, and that they need power structures in order to implement it. Conservatives are saying the same thing. The only difference is what is your standard for improvement? What does the vision of improvement look like?
Oh, girl, that's a lot. I feel you. I thought it was interesting how he was like, you know, we have to win the power by persuasion. I was like, or you could just smack somebody, but that's wrong. That's wrong. I know. We can't just go around smacking people.
No.
Pray from my heart, people. Pray from my heart.
Okay, next up is your topic.
I didn't know. I didn't think we were doing this.
Oh, I thought this is what you wanted to do.
No.
Okay. This is what you said to me.
It is.
Oh.
But we talked about it. Keep going.
Do you want to do it or not?
No, go ahead. We can.
All right. So over the weekend, there was the big situation in New York City that the mainstream media doesn't seem to be reporting on. So we will talk about it. There was a situation where there was a protest and then there was a counter protest, from what I understand, in New York City. And then there was a guy who was pledging his allegiance to ISIS, who then tried to throw a bomb into the anti-Islam protest. And he was pledging allegiance to the Islamic State.
Yeah, ISIS.
Yeah. And he was caught.
He was. They got him pretty quickly, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he throws the bomb and he, you know, screams out, not Allah Akbar, but like allegiance to the Islamic State, like you said.
Yeah.
But then what I thought was interesting was Mamdani's response.
Yeah.
To the.
Should we watch this video first?
Sure.
Should we watch this one first? There he is, the retail guy. Doing all this mayhem.
Somebody having an emergency contact. Dude, like,
so there's his little bomb, I guess, that he threw. Thankfully, it didn't go off. Otherwise, that could have been kind of a disaster. Stop moving! Well, thankfully, NYPD. Hopefully, somebody had his emergency contact.
Does somebody have your emergency contact? Liberals are, I'm sorry, but like, are you his mother? This kid just went out here and tried to throw a bomb at humans. And your main concern is, does somebody have your emergency contacts? Like, I can't, yeah. Go ahead.
One of our viewers says that there's other videos where you can clearly hear him saying Allah
That's
Akbar
what I
in the
thought
video.
I had heard too, but the majority of things that I saw only said that he was pledging his allegiance to ISIS. And so I wasn't too sure, but I know I saw one that said he had said Allah Akbar. But then we get good old Mamdani. He's my favorite.
He's going to be the gift who keeps on giving.
He really is.
Next few years. Okay. So I think the good thing in all of this is that they caught the guys. So that's good.
Mm-hmm.
They arrested them. Hopefully they get prosecuted. All right.
Hopefully they get deported.
Mhm.
Like, hopefully they get like, you need to go somewhere, because obviously your beliefs don't match up with the American beliefs. Like, something is wrong. And as long as we continue to allow, and I mean, he might be a citizen, then we need to figure out something where he's just in jail for a long time, because you cannot try to kill American citizens just because you have a different value system, you have a different belief. The natural Muslim belief, the Islamic belief, is that the West is the devil. Like, we should be killed. And people participate from that. And if people are participating from that, like, I don't really know what else to tell you.
Well, and here's where it gets very confusing, because people know, many people know Muslims in their everyday
100%.
life who are peaceful people.
Mhm.
They're not for terrorists, but there is like the component of Islam, when you dig into it, that is a religion of conquering.
Mhm.
And there is, as people who hold to that version of Islam, there is a segment of them who are immigrating to the West on purpose, for the purpose of conquering the West.
Yes.
And so we have to acknowledge that. And so that's not to say that all Muslims are this way, but just because all Muslims don't see themselves as conquering the West, some of them want to assimilate. That doesn't mean that we should ignore the percentage of people who are intentionally immigrating to the West for the purpose of conquering.
Yes.
Two things can be true.
Two things can be true, but I also think that at the foundational level of what the religion is, even if you aren't participating that way as a Muslim, we have to have recognition of what the religion is. Like, what the Quran says, like what the teachings are. You might not participate that way, but we can't get away from the reality of what the instructions really are if you were to actually fully participate. And that's where I say Islam is not compatible with the West because of what Islam teaches. Now, whether you decide you're going to be a knucklehead towards your religion, you're going to be an infidel, you're going to be, hard-headed and not participate, that's on you. And I would appreciate that as an American. But the religion teaches these things.
Yeah, but there's a lot of dispute about that. And you did a conversation with
Laura Powell
a while back.
She's a Muslim apologist.
Yeah, going into some of those finer details of Islam that, the mainstream news doesn't always report about. And the picture that they want us to believe is, well, this is just a peaceful religion. I mean, that's what I believe for years. That was what George W. Bush said to all of us after 9/11, is that Islam is a peaceful religion, and that it's only this very tiny percentage of radicals who want to do these things. And now that I've kind of grown older and studied more and I have more understanding, it's like, oh, okay, well, there's a little bit more to that that we need to understand. It's a little more complicated. So, what I was trying to find out was what the original protesters were protesting. I forgot to look that up before we went live.
Hmm.
But all right, let's watch the Mamdani clip here, and then we can comment on it. If anyone knows, put in the chat. Let me get this resized. All right, here we go.
Of us were home at the time. This was a vile protest rooted in white supremacy entitled Stop the Islamic Takeover of New York City. I'm the first Muslim mayor of our city. Anti-Muslim bigotry is nothing new to me, nor is it anything new for the 1 million or so Muslim New Yorkers who know this city as our home. While I found this protest appalling, I will not waver in my belief that it should be allowed to happen. Ours is a free society where the right to peaceful protest is sacred. It does not belong only to those we agree with. It belongs to everyone. I will defend that right every day that I am mayor, even when those protesting say things that I abhor. Let me also be clear about something else. New York City will never tolerate violence, whether from protests or counter-protests. Many of the counter-protesters met this display of bigotry peacefully, with a vision of a city that is welcoming to all. But a few did not. Two men, Amir Balat and Ibrahim Qayyumi, traveled from Pennsylvania and attempted to bring violence to New York City. They are suspected of coming here to commit an act of terrorism. There is video of these two individuals throwing two devices towards the protest. The police department has determined that these were improvised explosive devices made to injure, maim, or worse. Thanks to the swift and decisive actions of NYPD officers at the scene, both men were immediately taken into custody, and the devices they brought taken off of our streets. I want to commend the officers who were on site.
Okay. So I was looking it up while we were playing the clip, like what were the original protesters were. So apparently the original protesters were a small group around, this is according to Grok, around 20 people organized by far-right activist Jake Lang. Wouldn't surprise me if he was a white supremacist, but okay, I can look him up in a minute. They were having a demonstration titled Stop the Islamic Takeover of New York City. And they were protesting in front of Mamdani's house. Their stated grievances focused on opposing what they described as the Islamification of the city, calling for an end to public Muslim prayer, and expressing anti-Islam, anti-Muslim sentiments. And they were directing those toward the mayor due to his faith and background. Or they could be directing him because he's the mayor, you know. So then the counter protesters were described under slogans like "Run the Nazis out of New York City" or "Drive Nazis out of New York City" or "Stand against hate." So that's the context into which the bombs were thrown.
What I think is interesting is his framing of it all.
Mamdani's.
Yes, the bigotry, the like anti-Muslim hate, the it's taking this might be a stretch, and I'll acknowledge that, but it almost to me sounds like taking what these people did. And while he says, we're going to stand against violence and things like that, like if these people weren't here, they wouldn't have done that. It just doesn't. I'm like, yeah,
so it's almost like it was warranted.
Or, well, like people are the product of their environment, and look at the environment that the white supremacists, created. Look at this act of white supremacy. Look at this, act of bigotry. If these things weren't in place, this would not have happened. And I don't know that that's true. I believe that Islam calls for violence against the West anyway. And no one wants to address that. Like, you want to talk about the way that the Muslims are treated in New York City. And I have not done no deep dive on research on how Muslims are treated in New York City. But the calls to prayer, and like kind of like it is in Minnesota, and the or in Michigan, the prayer bells and like all of these things. That's not America. And I believe that as we continue to see more and more of this, it is kind of like an Islamification, this bending of American values to the acceptance of Islam. It's going to be even more problematic.
I would say there's almost a favoritism of Islam
Mhm.
in some regards at times. But I looked up Jake Lang. I remember his name now. He was arrested as part of the January 6th events in 2021 at the U.S. Capitol and was released later. I think he was given a pardon. He was one of the people given a pardon. He was in prison for 4 years. And he's known as kind of a provocateur. He does a lot of these types of protests. And I think this highlights like another thing that I'm seeing is somebody said in the comments, he's a little white supremacy, like maybe not overtly white supremacist, but kind of does and says things that make you wonder. And I think that is always the thing that people on the right, conservatives, are facing right now, of kind of the rise and the more public presence of people who are overtly racist,
Mhm.
who are getting more emboldened because of the radical Muslims and the things that they're doing that are just not compatible with Western culture and our way of life. And so you have these kind of two extremes. The dialectic, where it's one extreme, another extreme, they're fighting against each other, and then we're sort of waiting for what is going to be the middle, what is going to be the synthesis of that.
Mhm.
Because as things get more and more polarized, it's like, well, there might be some things I agree with Jake Lang on, in that I do think that the Islamification of the West is incompatible with Western culture.
Mhm.
And so there are some people who are trying to push back on that. Do we really want to be co-belligerents in that pushback with people who are motivated by a whites only culture, which is not what we're advocating for?
Mhm.
Do you see
Yeah, I do.
what I'm trying to say there?
I was thinking about, again, Mamdani's comments, and if you notice how I don't necessarily think that it shows well just from this clip, but a lot of what he talks about is the white supremacy of the culture, the white supremacy that's going against Muslims, the white supremacy that goes against culture, breaking down white supremacy and things like systems of white supremacy. But do you notice how it's not just white people who are against it? I think there's many Americans of every ethnicity that would say, no, this is against our American values, this is against our American culture. But if they can pull it out and make it look like it's a white issue, like it's a racist issue, like all white people are the problem, don't trust the white people, it then grows the proletariat, for lack of a better word. It grows the victim base to be able to then, at least in the way it looks, the optics of it all looks like it's all of us against just the white people. I don't know. There's something about Mamdani and his tactics and how he speaks about like white supremacy that to me and it's probably just the communistic nature of that underpins a lot of his beliefs. But it really does make me think of this divide, like trying to intentionally create this divide where it's white against everybody else.
Yeah.
Or everybody else against white, whatever.
I think that there's a collapsing that Mamdani does, of collapsing the West with white people. Whereas I think what you and I are trying to advocate for is, no, we want assimilation into an American culture or into Western culture, whether you are Black or whether you're from China or, you came, if you're somebody like who was an immigrant from communist China and you came to America and you love freedom and you see yourself primarily and first as an American and you have loyalty to America, like there's a difference between those people and just the way that Mamdani and so many people on the left just collapse the West into being white, and that what we're trying to protect is white people. No, we're trying to protect a certain group of ideas from the West, and anyone can come and believe in that and be part of it.
But it does go to show how the idea that we were sold probably late 70s, mid-late 70s through the 80s, this idea of multiculturalism has really failed. And it's not that we or that I am saying, the idea of, culture is bad, or that I don't want to celebrate someone who may be from another culture, like go to their house and eat their food, or appreciate the culture that they have. But when we look at our nation and what is best for the nation, I think the idea of multiculturalism has really failed us, because we had this at one time idea of being a melting pot where everybody came in and kind of all melted together. But you pointed out and you used the word salad bowl. Now all the tomatoes are just tomatoes, and everybody who's lettuce is just lettuce, and everybody who's a cucumber is just a cucumber. There is no appreciation of what it means to be an American. There is very little appreciation of what it means to actually melt together. Because when you leave the land of America, trust me, you're an American.
No matter what color you are.
It don't matter what color you are. You an American. And whether they like Americans or whether they don't, you just an American. But inside of the nation, we're trying to hold up this idea of multiculturalism and force that on people, so much so that we need to celebrate even the cultures of the people who want to damn you, the cultures of the people who want to kill you. And if you stand up and say, no, that is wrong, this culture has something that is very flawed in it, then you're the bad person.
I want to comment a couple of things here, interesting observations people are making. One of them, I thought was a very interesting comment. Fighting against all the COVID mayhem made some strange bedfellows. I suspect fighting against Islam will do the same. It's an interesting analogy, because during COVID and all of the social unrest, and it's kind of like there was COVID and then there was all the social justice stuff kind of happening at the same time and intermingling. And so suddenly, like, I'm finding I have agreement with someone like Helen Pluckrose and James Lindsay and Peter Boghossian, whereas Peter Boghossian has written a book called Street Epistemology that is basically how to convert young people to atheism. Like, he was the king of that. And now I'm on the same side as Peter Boghossian to push back against social justice. Wait, what? And there was this weird coalition of people with all of these very divergent beliefs, everything from like the very traditional separatist Catholics, or over to somebody like the atheists like Helen Pluckrose and everything in between. And we were on that spectrum of people trying to push back because we all had a common enemy. Well, now we're in a position where we're trying to also push back against the Islamification of the West. Yeah. And so now you have all these strange bedfellows, and one group in that coalition is a rising group of people who are legitimate OG racists. And they hate Islam because brown people, and they hate they're not white, that's not our position. But it's like, I don't really want to partner with those people. I didn't partner with them in 2020 when we were pushing back against social justice. I don't need racists, legitimate racists, to help me do that. Yeah. And I don't want them in my coalition now as I'm trying to push back against the Islamification. I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting comment.
I don't know who this is, but the comment says, Do light-skinned Arab Muslims classify themselves as white in the U.S. Census? I don't know, but it is the fact that the term light-skinned was used. Because I remember when I was talking to you about light-skinned people, and you were like, what do you mean light-skinned? And I was like, high yellow. And you were like, what do you mean high yellow?
I don't know. I didn't know what that was.
I think it's a very interesting comment. I don't know what the benefit of it would be. I think if they were, truly Muslim, they would, mark that. But yeah, it made me chuckle. Yeah.
So someone says there's no such thing as Christian nationalism. You're a Christian, period. So we always have to explain this. What when we're using this term, what do we mean? And I vacillate over the usefulness of the term Christian nationalism, but all that we mean by that is that we believe that because God's justice, principles of justice are transcultural and universal, and he judges nations in the Bible according to whether or not they live according to his justice standards, that nations ought to have laws that are based on biblical principles. This is something we see in scripture. It's not just about Judaism. It also extends to Gentile nations. Just go read the first few chapters of the book of Amos. You can see that clearly, that God judges nations according to his justice standards. And when they act in habitual patterns of behavior of injustice toward others, those nations are subject to judgment. So that's what we mean at the Center for Biblical Unity by the term Christian nationalism. Now, you can get into the nitty-gritty of it. There's 4 or 5 different streams of Christian nationalism.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about that
I
before.
was looking for your blog on it, but I only found Neil's.
But
I can put this one in the chat.
It's not saying that the gospel is the same as politics either. Mm-hmm. We would say politics is downstream from your worldview, from the gospel. But we are saying that God does judge nations. You got to have a theology of nations. It's not the same thing as the kingdom of God. That's a different citizenship. We can believe in 2 things at once. We can believe that nations should be just, and we can also believe that the gospel is spread, and the kingdom of God is the kingdom of God is spread through the gospel. Hopefully that helps to make some sense.
Do you know where yours is? I can find it real quick.
No.
I'll just put Neil's in.
Yeah, I would have to look for it.
That's fine.
Okay. In the UK, we are culturally fighting for our life. The ideology of Islam is so dangerous for us as Christians. And the West has been built on different versions of Christianity. Some of them Catholic, some of them Eastern Orthodox, some of them Protestant. America was founded as, I don't think this should be a disputed point. It's a historical point. That America was predominantly founded as an extension of British Anglo-Saxon Protestantism. It was founded by different denominations, but mostly Anglicans or Episcopalians, as we call them now. So that's why we have culturally and historically shared a lot of culture with the UK. I think that's changing because there is an agenda by some Muslims to intentionally immigrate to the West for the purpose of conquering.
Yeah.
We have to be in reality about that. So the other thing I was going to, this was another good comment I wanted you to comment on, Monique. The dialectic is designed to hollow out the center. The more nothing is done to address the concerns, the more both groups will lean into the radicals. So on one side, we have the radical Muslims. On the other side, we have the white supremacists, I guess. The left has been leaning into it for years. Then it's like, well, who's left in the center? Because as these 2 sides get more and more polarized, people feel like I got to pick a side.
Yeah. We had a conversation with, maybe it was Bill Roach a couple years ago at the SES conference that addressed that, but from the totalitarian perspective. that totalitarianism, the way he saw it, was really being sought after on both sides. And as you hollow out the center, then people are forced into more extreme views. And so they're both fighting for kind of the same thing. They're both arguing for a lot of the same thing. But yeah, I would need to do a bit more research on it. But yeah, I can see how that plays out.
All right. I think that's it.
I think so too. I do. Because you know why? It's time
Why?
to go home. What time is it? It's time for lunch. What time? Did you ever watch the Bubble Guppies? Bubble
I've never even heard of this.
Guppies.
Is this a TV show?
Bubble Guppies. Never mind. Yeah.
All right,
little-
friends.
You know, I like little, so sometimes you watch the Bubble Guppies. All right.
We will see you, Lord willing. We'll see you again next week. Watch for a special family meeting to drop tomorrow. We're doing 2 of them this week. It's a special edition with Kevin and his other podcast partner, Devin Smith,
The twins.
from their Informed Takes podcast. I pulled a highlight of it to help explain to you the complexities of geopolitics. If you find yourself just utterly confused, like, why are we kidnapping Nicolas Maduro in the middle of the night? Or what are we doing in Iran? Or what's the big picture with China and Russia and all of that? If you want to understand how all of those pieces fit together, make sure to catch tomorrow's special edition of the family meeting. It will not be a live stream, it's pre-recorded, so I'll just be dropping it over on YouTube and on the family meeting podcast stream. So, but it's going to give you like a 45-minute crash course into geopolitics. So you're not going to want to miss out on that.
Good
All
night.
right.